Hey George, what's up? Oh hey Fred, you won't believe what a designer I found. First year Gryffindor, doesn't need me involved, doesn't need research, starts with UI right off the bat, it's like magic. You sure it's a good idea? UX is a methodical process and takes time. Sure, it's Hogwarts, but even magic... Nah, don't worry about that. Oh, can you hear that? He's working. UX Piliarmus, Usabilio, Uexpecto Patronum. Excuse me, sir. May I do some UX research?
What?
Please, sir. May I do some research? Magic mirror, here I stand. Who's the wisest in the land? Who knows thine users like the back of his hand? Who needs not the pesky UX process planned? If any of these situations are relatable, I'm sure this video will help. No matter if you're a designer looking to boost your skills, or working with designers closely, we'll go over the whole design process. Spoiler alert, you don't need a magic wand. Here's the big picture here. No matter what kind of UX design process you're looking at, chances are you're dealing with design thinking in some shape or form. Design thinking is an innovation and problem-solving framework, which is what design is. This framework consists of 5 steps. That's empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Let me give you a quick example so things are less abstract. Say you're a doctor and you just met your new patient, Mike. Mike doesn't feel well and tells you what's wrong. That's empathy. Having listened to Mike's complaints, you quickly make notes and jot down his symptoms. That's defining. Based on these symptoms, you go over potential diseases and settle on 2 potential culprits. That's ideation. Then, you prescribe Mike medication that should help with the first potential disease, and tell him to come back in a few days. That's prototyping. Mike comes back and says that the medication didn't help, which eliminates your first hypothesis. Then, you prescribe the medication to the second potential disease, and bingo, it worked. Now you can prescribe further treatment to the exact disease Mike has. The fictional situation I've just described illustrates how the design principles work. It's applicable to all sorts of situations, definitely not just UX design. And now let's see how this translates into the UX design process. Let's do an experiment. Instead of talking about the design process from start to finish, let's untangle it backwards. Reversing the process order might help us better see how one stage is dependent on the previous one. As such, we'll begin at the end and end at the start. Your app does look cool and shiny. However, as you know, it is the developers who breathe life into designs and concepts. Therefore, your product is only as good as developers code it. No pressure on the devs. To help make sure the developers code the products as the designers intended, you need a few things. First of all, by this point, you should have run your design ideas by developers multiple times. Otherwise, you're risking to design something that is not technologically feasible. Secondly, there's also a design system. Long story short, a design system is a collection of all reusable design assets, like forms, buttons, their states, interactions, etc. That way, you can save designers hours upon hours of designing the same elements and making sure they're consistent. It gets even better. With a design system, you can apply global changes to all instances of similar elements. And it gets even more better. Developers can attach snippets of code to the elements as well, so they won't have to code the same element multiple times. Finally, there is, well, the design itself. The final design should be neatly organized in a single file to avoid chaos and messy Figma or Sketch files. At that point in time, your design should look and feel stunning. How do you know if it's good enough though? Do you ask your mom if she likes it? Do you follow a trend you found on Dribbble or Behance? A gut feeling maybe? Oh, I wish. It's a little more complex. Nothing you can handle though. Let me explain. Want to hear a story straight out of UX designer's nightmare? It's coding an unvalidated design. On your way to an outstanding product, you'll have to validate each major design change. That applies to low and high fidelity wireframes and prototypes, and finalize designs as well. More on that later. First, let's talk visuals for a second. Everyone wants their product to look breathtaking. If done tastefully, all the bells and whistles elevate the experience. But what exactly are these bells and whistles in the context of product design though? A few things. Animations, smooth interactions, illustrations, all of which are often referred to as delights, aren't something that you absolutely have to do. An email automation app MailChimp, for instance, doesn't exactly need illustrations like these to function. However, smooth animation and illustrations are what helps you move from good to great. If combined with excellent usability, having the lights in your product is a surefire way to make things more enjoyable. You should also keep in mind that a cat ninja animation might not work that well for a boutique jewelry store. Wait, but why not? Cats are cool, ninjas are cool. Well, the answer lies in branding. Let me explain. Colors, branding, and cat ninjas are probably the areas of design that are the closest to pure art. It doesn't mean that you should just go by feeling alone or rely on inspiration though. Such things as branding, colors, or fonts can and should be based on methodical frameworks. A good exercise we like to do with our clients is a brand house and the brand spectrum. What these exercises do is document the brand's values, mission, and the feel it is going for. Based on that information, we can then help the whole brand experience be cohesive through product design. So, if your branding is relaxed, friendly, and spontaneous, then sure, go ahead with a ninja cat. If not, you might want to consider something else. Here's another quick example. Brands that tend to lean towards exclusivity often tend to go for classy fonts, black and white colors, etc. That's cool. Such approach wouldn't really work for something like McDonald's, would it? Another cool thing about colors is that they have their connotations, even if they're unconscious. It's worth noting, though, that these connotations are oftentimes cultural. Here's a cool infographic that explains the color connotations across different cultures. So make sure to do your research as to what color you want to associate the brand with, depending on the target market. Okay, so our bells and whistles are on brand. The delights, though, should be authentic and cool. Stock illustrations like these don't exactly add too much value. The trouble is that cool is a very loose and subjective term that's kind of hard to define. So here's what you should do. Spoken language is not the best way to describe design preferences. In this case, an image does indeed speak louder than 1,000 words. So, to help your team communicate what their personal thoughts and preferences are, you should create a mood board. In a nutshell, a mood board is a collection of design references. The more the better. Going through these design samples will help you put your finger on what exactly the team likes. Good, we know now how to make a good-looking app. Looks alone, however, can only get you so far. There's no use for a diamond-encrusted golden contact lens if it doesn't help you see better. Wait, diamond-encrusted golden contact lens is a thing? Well, I guess there's actually no use for them unless you're one of those guys. The range of activities that focus on making a product and the whole brand experience easy and enjoyable to use are referred to as UX design. Let's zoom in on that. Let's start with usability testing, which is one of the most important activities within the UX design stage. So here's the thing about product design. I'm not the one to give relationship advice, but coding your design without usability testing is like proposing on your first date. It's way too early to make such a commitment. You've got to know each other first, and if you like it, then you should have put a ring on it. How do we get to know a piece of design? You have your users interact with it. Usability testing is basically interviewing your users on whether the design is usable. It's a little more nuanced than that, but you get the gist of it. In a nutshell, to conduct the usability testing, you should 1. Formulate a plan, recruit the users for the interview, conduct and record the interviews, then uncover insights and interpret them, and finally, implement what you've learned in your design. Then, repeat until your design performs great. And bingo, your designs are ready for coding. You can officially commit. In 99% of the cases, especially nowadays, the usability testing sessions are remote, to save the trouble of the on-site meetings. As such, in practice, these are Zoom calls you record. Okay, we have to test the designs before coding. That much is clear. But how exactly do we do it? Do we play pretend that static images actually work? Nope. All modern design tools allow you to connect your design elements together and make static images interactive without coding. Let's dive a little deeper in that. There are really 3 main reasons you would need a prototype, aka the clickable image. So first is to communicate how the design works to developers. Second, show something tangible to early users and investors. And third, for usability testing. The latter is the most common reason you create prototypes. It is relatively easy to turn your designs into prototypes in tools like Figma or Sketch. You could also use specialized tools for prototyping like Proto.io, Framer, Prototyper. Tools are, well, tools. They don't matter that much. Okay, so to create a prototype, we need designs, but like, what designs? Do they have to be colorful, pixel perfect, and shiny, or would hasty sketches do as well? There is a place for both of these in the design process. Let me elaborate. A high-fidelity wireframe is a piece of design in its adolescence. It's validated to some degree, but still likely to change before it's mature. By the way, fidelity, in this case, means how close your designs are to a launch-ready version. At this stage, they're close to their final version, hence the high fidelity. So here's a list of checkboxes you should tick for a high-fidelity wireframe. The design patterns are complete and usable. They are no longer just boxes, simple shapes, or concepts. The elements of brand aesthetics and lights are also introduced. The interface is in good enough shape to resemble a functioning product. The high-fidelity wireframe doesn't just appear out of thin air, though. They require preliminary concept exploration and validation. Here's how that works. Ladies and gentlemen, sharpen your pencils, because it's time we started drawing. At this stage, we're ready to give more shape to our app by visualizing the design patterns we can use. Wonder why you need a pencil? Because all you need to get started are rough, hand-drawn sketches. No need to draw the whole app, just the key screens that deliver the most value. Once you settle on those, you can digitize the wireframes in Figma or Sketch. Low-fidelity wireframes are the playground for ideas you need to carve educated guesses and rough ideas into something thought through. Depending on the degree of the wireframe fidelity, you can validate it internally and even turn it into a low-fidelity prototype. Lo-fi wireframes don't come out of thin air either. These are based on your high-level understanding of your product, its functionality, and the tasks the users are looking to complete. How do we know what screens do we create though? We plan for it in advance with user flows and information architecture. Let's start with user flows. In a nutshell, a user flow is a path users take all the way from the system entrance to completing their task. Practically, these take shape as a diagram. Generally, one user flow represents one user type and one task type. The number of user flows depends solely on the number of user groups you're catering to, and the number of different tasks your app allows you to complete. Alright, so we've moved one level higher from specific screens to the sequence of screens. There's one more higher level to go, in the realms of information architecture. Before even thinking about the wallpaper patterns or tiles of your new house, you kinda need to see the blueprint first. The same principle applies to product design. Let's keep going with the building construction metaphor. Before laying a single brick, you need a blueprint. Otherwise, you will end up with a bunch of disjointed pieces that don't really fit together. Information architecture is analogous to a construction blueprint. In practical terms, the blueprint is usually created in a tool like FigJam, Miro, or Lucidchart. Whichever tool you prefer, you need to roughly map out the modules, features, and screens you're going to need. Alright, so the app is usable, it's cohesive, and well structured. But what if no one wants it in the first place? What if there are not enough people interested to justify building an app? What if there are alternatives that are a lot more convenient, faster, and cheaper? These are all great questions, and you sure should have a good answer to that before you invest time and effort into your new product. How do you find these answers? UX research is the way. Here are the 4 activities you can do to gather information as to whether building your product is a good idea. One of the founding principles of any product is the pains it relieves. Whether it's something simple like scissors or complex like Salesforce, both of these products solve specific problems. The user story is a brief yet specific scenario stating what the user wants to accomplish by using the product. It describes the most basic goal of a user, such as signing up for a new account, finding the checkout, contacting support, etc. Implementing user stories during your design process helps us accomplish 3 things. So, user stories ensure the design is user-focused, user stories also clarify the design process to avoid feature creeps, and they also coordinate various stages of the design process. Defining problems is great, however you should know that any problem has an existing solution, regardless of whether it's effective or not. You should definitely have a strong idea of what the current solutions are, so you can offer something better. Competitive analysis is how you do that. One thing you should realize is that your product doesn't exist in a vacuum. You can be almost certain that your users already have a solution to a problem that your product solves. Your job is to understand well how they do it and then offer a better way. In practice, the competitive analysis looks like a matrix with a list of competitors and their features. Such a matrix would help quickly see what everyone does and what's currently missing. A competitive analysis is an overall very valuable piece of documentation for design, product, and marketing decisions. In order to create such a matrix, You would need to scour through your competitors' products, blogs, forums, etc. The competition intelligence alone isn't enough though. You should also bounce your ideas off of your potential customers through surveys. Surveys are user research tools used to collect a large set of data about your users. Though they are mainly used to accumulate quantitative data, surveys can also be used to validate qualitative findings. What we find great about surveys is that they can generate a lot of feedback quickly and efficiently. The secret to creating a successful survey, however, is knowing what questions to ask, how to formulate them, and who to ask them to. In our experience, the most effective surveys are short, topic-specific, and have a combination of closed and open-ended questions. For this reason, we make sure we utilize both closed and open-ended questions so that we are able to gather enough context while keeping participants interested. Surveys and any other kind of user research are great. The trouble, though, is consolidating, making sense of, and leveraging this information. User personas is one of such way of crystallizing the knowledge you've just acquired. User personas are fictional characters that are created using research material and represent the different types of users that interact with your product, service, or brand. Generally, the persona is presented as a 1-2 page description of an archetypal user. User personas typically contain the following bits of information: its demographics, background, needs, goals, frustrations, motivations, etc. And here's the thing, user personas are useless, unless they're created right, of course. And creating a persona is a lot harder than it seems. It's not just a list of assumptions. Oh no, you need actual information. Where do you get it? Here are a few sources. So you can do user interviews with your own or your competitors' users. You can use things like Reddit, Quora, etc. And Facebook and LinkedIn work just as well. Just ask people. You'd be surprised with how many people will reply and share their experience. All right, people do want your product, or at least you do have a few good reasons to believe that. But where do you even start? How do you even work together with other people? What is there had been already done before you? How do you get up to speed with what the team already knows once you join? Well, it's all about a good discovery phase. Gauging the business objectives of the product is the first thing you should absolutely do. This part right here can either set you up for success or doom you to failure. Before a single pixel is moved, understanding what your business goals are is a priority. That way, all of the stakeholders, designers included, can move toward the same end goal. In our experience, the best way to get everyone on the same page is through workshops. In practice, workshops are a structured meeting with multiple stakeholders that documents everyone's vision, priorities, concerns, and areas of responsibility. Skipping this step is detrimental because it causes chaos. Everyone is after their own thing, the conflicts will surface sooner or later, a lot of redoing what's been done before, utter chaos. Another thing you should do is something referred to as desk research, aka UX dumpster diving. In a nutshell, desk research is collecting everything that's been done before you to start where your predecessor left off. Don't jump the gun on scrapping everything that was done before your involvement. Make sure to scout for any design artifacts that can be reusable or helpful. We don't want to do the same job twice, right? If the product you're working on is launched already, you need to do two things. You need to check the current metrics and do an audit. You need the analytics so that later you can compare how your design changes influences things like conversions, signups, success rates, etc. The heuristic evaluation, which is a major part of a UX audit, is basically a team of designers going through the app and checking the design against the UX best practices. That way you can identify up to 90% of usability issues very fast. By the way, we have a video on that as well. Check it out after you're done with this one. The last 19 minutes of the video have been kind of intense. Sorry about that. We did our best to give just enough details for you to make sense of the UX process. Now, let's quickly revise everything in chronological order to solidify the things we've discussed in a rewind. Roughly, the UX process can be divided into 6 parts. These are: understand and audit. This is the part where you gather business objectives, initial analytics, get to know the project stakeholders, do desk research, etc. Skipping this part might result in misalignments and working toward different outcomes among the team members. These processes are analogous to empathy in design thinking. Then there's UX research, which is the second stage. It's all about gathering as much information as you can about your users, their pains and reliefs. Speaking in design thinking terms, it's both empathy and definition. The third and fourth steps, respectively, are UX conception and strategy. This is where you build the foundation for anything visual you're going to produce, putting what you've learned in previous stages to use to construct the scaffolding around your digital product. The fifth step is visual design. This is where you put the meat of visuals over the bones of UX. And then there's design validation. To be fair, the validation activities are present throughout the whole UX process in some shape or form. So we decided to mention it here as well. At this particular stage, it's especially important to test everything you can before launch. And then there's handoff. Once your designs are ready, you should then prepare all of the files for developers to code. And there you go, I've just summarized the last 19 minutes of the video in just 2. And that brings us to the end of this video. If you've learned something new, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. We've been working hard for this video to see the light of day, so make sure to let us know what you think in the comments.